Let's see here. All right, we are live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got a lot to talk about in our live stream. We're going to start off by talking about the crypto markets and, answer the question that I'm sure everybody is wondering, which is, hey, what's going on with the crypto markets? When are things going to stop crashing? When are they going to turn around? What's the outlook on this? I'm going to talk about my opinion on this in this video, what I think is going on today, and what I think could happen, in the relatively near future. Okay, so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a lot of the news updates that have happened on our live stream since yesterday. Again, we do these Monday through Friday in this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, like nothing I'm saying in this video is designed to be financial advice, and there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Just ignore them. Like, I'm never going to give you my phone number on YouTube, never going to ask you to invest with me. I'm never going to get you into a secret chat room to DM you about paid promotion on my YouTube channel. I've heard about people getting scammed that way. There's just lots of scammers out there. Like, probably the only way I'm ever going to interact with you online is through this YouTube channel, or, you trust me, you'll know. Okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's look at the crypto markets, because this is the thing that pretty much everyone is wondering about right now. So, taking a good, honest look at this, today in the short term, things do not look pretty. Of course, there's a lot of red across the map. The only thing that's really green are a really random tiny handful of things that are just kind of having short-term moves, but most everything is down across the board. Now, what you have to understand is if you zoom out and look at what's going on in other markets, like we're seeing a very similar type of thing in the stock market. Okay, we talked about this a little bit yesterday with the the minutes that came out from the Fed meeting, the central bank of the United States, that was held back in December. Now those minutes have been released. Okay, and the market yesterday was starting to respond to that. Okay, so you have to understand that the Fed is a big component. The central bank of the United States and other countries as well, is a big factor in what investors think is going to happen in the future, and they allocate resources accordingly. Okay, so a lot of what's happened with crypto and other assets over the past couple of years, has been largely due to more expansionary, loose monetary policy. Basically people buying assets, expecting inflation, expecting prices to go up to preserve their capital, get out of cash, all that type of stuff, right? And we've seen interest rates continue to go down, all that type of stuff that help this type of environment. And the minutes came out yesterday, we're talking about, the idea of raising rates sooner, tightening things up. And whenever that happens, you see lots of investors, allocate resources accordingly, kind of in the opposite direction. All right. So, or to do the opposite or something different than what they were doing before. So that was definitely a factor we talked about yesterday. Now today we have more, news come out. We have the Fed's job report. All right. So the Fed's job report, unemployment rates dives, more Fed fears. Okay, so the numbers from the job reports were significantly off from what people thought they were going to be. So we're seeing more and more signs that things don't look as good as people think they have been. All right, and people have a lot of fear about what central bank is going to do in response to this and how that could affect their assets. And so I think we're seeing all markets respond in a somewhat risk-off way to these types of things. So crypto is not in isolation. This is not a crypto-only problem. Okay, so that's what you need to understand. Now let's talk about like the short to midterm to long-term outlook on this. All right. So while things do look ugly right now, my long-term view on where crypto is headed is not really affected by this in a meaningful way. Now, I might, in terms of me thinking that Bitcoin can reach those price targets of $100,000 per Bitcoin, that Ether can reach a price target of 10K per Ether. That's not really affected by this in terms of that it can get there. Now, it might lengthen the amount of time it takes to get there, but my whole bet on this space is that 100K per Bitcoin right now is over a 2x. It's like a 2.5x in the current Bitcoin price. That, good luck in many cases getting that, just by sticking your money in the S&P. By the time Bitcoin reaches $100,000. That's not financial advice. Of course, that's just how I'm thinking about this. Same thing for Ether. A 10K per Ether would be a 3x and change from here. I don't think that like it's still, in my opinion, a really good risk-reward scenario for a long-term bet on that type of thing. Now, like I said, it could extend the amount of time that it takes to get to those price targets based on this. This is a setback, all right? There's no denying that, all right? So, and like I said, the reason I think that we're going to reach those is because of network effect and what's happening with this technology. We're creating technology that is useful, that actually generates demand for the technology itself. The price, that we're seeing a correlation of actual adoption of the technology with the price of the cryptocurrencies themselves. And let's say for worst case scenario that adoption has stalled in some way. Well, if it's stalled in some way, then what I would expect to see is essentially the price of the cryptocurrencies maybe range and go sideways in the area at which it has stalled, okay? But that's not really what I'm seeing. The growth has slowed from the explosive growth maybe that we saw at the beginning of last year. But the growth is still happening. It's just a slower grind. That's kind of how technology works. It tends to happen in phases, right? You have these big spikes, these big breakthroughs, these big awareness hype cycles, and things kind of slow down for a while, okay? The adoption doesn't really get bearish. So there's no reason, in my opinion, for the long-term price of them to get bearish. Now, we could have a deeper bear trend than the one we've been on for now, especially if we're in a vulnerable spot. But I don't expect it to be just like some grueling, doom and gloom bear market like I'm seeing all over social media right now. Okay, I mean, trust me, I was here when this happened. That's exactly what people thought was going to happen. Now, we do have a different set of circumstances, which is the macro economic environment changing, and that we do have to change what we think is going to happen based on this. Like, at the end of the day, nobody knows for sure what's going to happen with the future. Nobody knows how long it's going to take the crypto markets to stop crashing. Nobody perfectly knows where the bottom is. I'll give you some of my thoughts on that here in a minute, where I think it could be. But nobody knows, right? So what you have to do is but you still have to try to figure out what the future you think is going to look like. So you form a thesis that you think makes sense, like what I was talking about before with technology adoption, and that, having a huge correlation to crypto prices long term. And then you adjust that thesis based on new convincing information as it comes out. So right now, the macro landscape changing is convincing information that would probably have to revise your timelines on when these types of things would happen. At least that's how I'm thinking about it, okay? And I see it as a setback. So what could this setback look like? Well, like I said, not financial advice. This is really just my opinion. Nobody can predict this with any real degree of accuracy in the short term. I think long term, people can be pretty good at it, but in the short term, it's really hard to say. But what I think is where I'm setting my expectations is that, also rule out, like I said, likelihood is also a huge factor here. So likelihood, the least likely scenario in my mind is that we're just going to see a just completely balanced V-shaped recovery, from here, and just rocket off to these price targets, and like we kick in our parabolic rally, to the price targets everybody wants to see, and just see this massive party right now. That's probably not going to happen, okay? Especially not across major cap cryptocurrencies. And if we're gonna kind of resume this slow grind forward of 3 steps forward, 1 step back, or maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that we kind of been in for a while. Maybe this was 3 and then 2. It might take us some time. Like, we might be kind of fighting this throughout Q1 of 2022, okay, to get back to these price levels, maybe of like $4,000 plus per Ether, $100,000 plus Bitcoin, assuming that our uptrend is not broken. Now, you have to continue on down likelihood. We could be in a deeper, longer bear trend. All right, what could the bottom for that be? Well, I said that before, that kind of when ETH was around $4,000 and we saw this tick downward, I did make another buy here about $3,800. That shows you where my conviction is. 38, 37, something like that. So my thinking on that, I explained this on my YouTube channel whenever I did that, was that I would see the downside risk of that buy-in to be about 50% from there. So that would put us down around, these levels. And I was basing that based on historical support whenever we saw some really grueling, fast corrections. Okay. So I would still like that 50% downside from that price level here to around these levels is still where I would say we'd see some, mayday support if things got really bad. And so I'm still holding on to that. I think the more likely scenario is that we start seeing some really big support around these levels, like the $2,800, $3,000 per Ether price level, maybe even the level that we're at right now. I mean, the sentiment on social media for crypto is so bad right now that like that sentiment tends to mark local bottoms. But it doesn't always, you can't always be systematically fearful and others are greedy and greedy others are fearful, or else you buy every asset that went to zero. So I'm not just telling you to just do that and counter trade social sentiment, although that can be effective. There's no guarantee because you can't do it systematically, like I was saying. The social sentiment could signal that we are potentially getting close to some sort of bottom. Now that being said, like I said, this is not crypto specific. This is not crypto in isolation. This is a macro force that has to be reckoned with, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen. I mean, this could be a type of thing where the macro environment, where the Fed's policy affects, real estate. It affects lots of other things that consumers interact with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it already has been. I'm not gonna just sit here and say, oh, don't. There's nothing to worry about. That's not totally true. But I don't think I don't think we're in this doom and gloom scenario necessarily. There's no reason to think that we're in this doom and gloom scenario that everybody's talking about until we see more evidence in that direction. So again, none of this is financial advice for you. I'm mostly just talking about how I personally look at this because, I have skin in the game in these markets. I tell you what I do, and that's what I'm doing is basically just nothing. I'm not buying right now. I'm just watching. So, let's see. In terms of how low can it go and when it stop crashing, I'm seeing lots of, calls for a, $40,000 Bitcoin support. Maybe a little bit lower than that. I think 40,000 is a pretty significant psychological number for people. And so if it breaks it, that's when people think it's totally over. And then you might find some support actually slightly below that. That'd be like one final capitulation, maybe. So I think that's likely, like I said, it's all about likelihood. Nobody knows for sure, but I can definitely see that. With ETH, like I was talking about, I think the more likely support kicks in, around these levels, but I would say below that, then our support level is probably somewhere around in here. So we'll see. Somebody saying they thought it was 42. It doesn't. Oh, Ethan's gonna break 3K. So I've seen multiple support levels in Bitcoin saying 42, 40, 38. I mean, statistically speaking, those percentages aren't that far off from one another. We're talking about percentage gain or loss, especially not important terms of crypto. Okay. So I think those are all, roughly, basically $40,000 plus or minus $2,000. I mean, I can't do the math off my head to. So that's a 5% difference either way. Somebody says hopefully the longer it's down, the longer we can buy low. Well, if you choose to use some chips to buy the dip, then could do well. It's not financial advice, not telling you all to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another 30% downturn from here. It could happen. Somebody saying with all the tech about to hit the market, feels like a healthy dip. Yeah, I mean, I think there's macro factors at play, and you don't want to mess around with those. There are forces that are greatly outside your control, especially when we're talking about, unelected officials who control the money supply. Smith says, don't forget January is the poorest month of the year due to overspending for the holidays. It could be a factor for sure, especially from retail. But retail has been mostly flushed out at this point. I'm also, we need to think about institutional participants, because those are going to be a big part of the equation. Institutional adoption of cryptocurrency has been a big theme over the past year or so. I think lots of people are anticipating institutional participation for 2022 as sort of a next catalyst. It takes a long time for those institutions to make decisions, but you might have people who are like cutting those things based on what they forecast is going to happen in the markets, especially with the new Fed, news. Now, that being said, like, the counter to all this is that, most sane people know that we're not going to keep rates at, these historic lows forever, and that rate hikes would have to happen eventually, and that, things would have to tighten down eventually. So, that the counter to that is that what we're seeing in the markets right now is irrational overreaction to this type of thing. But that being said, I'm setting my expectations low. I'm setting my expectations low to where, we could see kind of a stinky Q1 of 2022 and everybody's expecting, party time. That being said, I'd love to be proven wrong. And I don't pretend to be a macro expert. I pretend to be a macroeconomist by any stretch of the imagination. But I do connect the dots and see how things are, linked to one another, and I get the basics. So if the plan is on launching a DeFi or NFT app, what is the best time to launch a bull, bear, or a neutral market? The best time to launch is always like yesterday, because the technology, like you don't have control over when you launch. Like, you launch when you can launch. There's no reason in waiting if you're ready to launch. The best thing is to take action, especially if it's your first project and you've never done a real project before. You just taking action is going to be the best thing over the long term. You can't get locked into short term thinking about when's the perfect time. Everything's got to be perfect. No, it's like, just do it. It says they only created 200,000 jobs in December, historic low number. Things are not looking good, believe me. Yeah, that's the prevailing sentiment. Somebody says if you wait for the perfect time for anything, you'll wait forever. That is true. You don't want to do that. Okay, so let's look at a couple other things that have happened in the space. So, I mean, the good news is, in terms of what's happening with the crypto markets, adoption of the technology in terms of people like launching new NFTs, like people are talking about here in the chat, creating DeFi applications, trying to build out the metaverse, building out Web 3.0 applications, like that's not really stopping, and I'm not going to say it's not unaffected by the crypto markets, because it is to some degree. Like as crypto booms, it has a huge positive impact on the space because a lot of capital flows into the space, and it makes it easier to hire more people to build out these types of things, to raise money, right? It's also crypto prices going up is amazing marketing for the space, so it draws in more people, all that type of stuff. So I'm not going to say that like crypto not booming has no effect on the adoption and things like, continuing to press forward, but it's not a deal breaker. Like what crypto prices are doing right now is not a deal breaker for the advancement of the tech itself. Okay. And that's the good news for most people who are watching this channel, because it means there's still a ton of opportunity in this space. And the best way, in my opinion, for most people watching this video who are clearly interested in this technology, clearly have an aptitude to learn things, like if you're watching this channel, it's most likely you, that the best bet for most people like that at this stage in the game to get a life-changing opportunity with crypto is to reskill and like learn how to do this stuff, because it's such high demand, whether you want to change your career, build your own project, become a freelancer, build a bot, whatever it is. That opportunity is not disappearing as crypto prices are going down. And even if crypto decided to go to some bear market that a lot of us are not expecting, that opportunity is not going to go away. Because I was here during the last like ridiculous bear market, and some demand did dry up, but there was still a ton of demand, and the demand was still growing in certain sectors. Okay, and I would definitely expect that to happen. Just regardless of what happens with the overall macroeconomic outlook, regardless of what happens with the crypto markets, the stock market, whatever. Web3 and crypto and all this stuff is Pandora has been let out of the box, and it's not going back in, and it's a huge force that is pushing forward. Okay, and so I was here, like I said, when that happened in 2018, 2019, and let me tell you what happened back then, which is basically we had the massive parabolic blow off top at the end of December of 2017, January 2018, and then things got really bearish for like a year, and then it just got like quiet and flat basically after that until 2020 happened, and then we kind of got in this rocket ship we've been riding for the past couple of years. So when that happened, like after that parabolic blow off top and that sort of winter that began, we had a huge leap forward in terms of technology. We had ICOs, we had smart contracts, and we had the beginning of what was going to become DeFi, all right? And mostly the DeFi was an idea inside of a lot of people's heads. But this information was not widely known and widely distributed. Like we had Solidity smart contracts, and largely people are kind of scratching their head thinking like, hey, what are we going to do with this stuff? Okay, like we knew it held a ton of power and a ton of potential, but we didn't exactly know what we were going to make out of all of it. But that's kind of the nature of new technology. You never know exactly what's going to work long term. You're an experimenter. You're a pioneer. You're like trying to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. But we had the beginnings of these use cases. So right now we're in a really similar type of place. I'm not saying that the market's going to crash and do what it did in 2018, but we're in a very similar type of place with a bunch of new like sub-trends, okay? Like we have smart contracts, and now we have all these new use cases that have come out. We've got NFTs, which have, we kind of understand what they're doing now. We kind of understand what DeFi is doing now. Like DeFi, cryptocurrency tokens, and NFTs, we kind of had that at the beginning of the last bear market, and those use cases started to flourish. And now we have all these new things like metaverse, right? We didn't have the word metaverse back in 2018. And so now there's lots of people who are thinking like, hey, I'm really skeptical about this metaverse thing. Like, we don't know if it's actually going to work. It's the same type of situation, in my opinion, okay? And there'll be a lot of BS out there, a lot of stuff that's not going to work, a lot of stuff that's really silly and kind of stupid. But that's the nature of new technology. But I do think that we're going to have a core set of things that, come out that will be valid use cases that actually have demand, that have long-term promise. We just don't exactly know what all those things are yet, okay? And so that's a huge carrot that's dangled out there for people to try to capture. And so you're going to have all these people, all this capital flock towards that opportunity. And a lot of them are going to lose, but some of them are going to win. And that's what generates the demand for tech talent, okay? And that's not going to go away despite what's happening to the crypto markets. And so we're seeing this, Ethereum leads Web3 developer count with 700 plus new devs each month, hashtag Ethereum. So, I released a video on my channel past couple days on how to become a blockchain developer in 2022. So I rebooted that video for this past year. People like me all the time, like, hey, what programming languages should I learn? What tech stack should I focus on? And that video, definitely go watch it if you haven't and you're trying to get in this space, which is basically, my whole thing is if you're a beginner and you don't know what to do, your best track is the Ethereum track. It's got the most demand, biggest developer ecosystem. If you learn the core skill sets for Ethereum, like Solidity, smart contracts, you can deploy this to so many different environments like Avalanche, Polygon, Ethereum Layer 2s, Binance Smart Chain, Phantom, lots of other places, right? You're really learning the Solidity stack for EVM or Ethereum Virtual Machine. That's what you are if you become an Ethereum developer, even if you don't deploy it directly to the Ethereum mainnet, all right? Now, lots of other people are attracted to like Solana, like Rust and stuff like that. I will say for most beginners, though, Rust is a harder programming language to learn. It's much more low level. It's just harder for beginners, in my opinion, okay? So that's what I would say about that. And also the other thing is the network effect of developers is huge when you're learning programming because you don't want to get a situation where you can't get help. And, if you're learning a programming language that's easier for beginners to learn, easier for beginners to learn, which that's what Solidity is, you're going to be in a better environment to get help from other people. Like if you Google for a problem, you're probably going to be able to find an answer on Stack Overflow, which is if you're working on something else that's way newer, then it might be harder. Somebody says it's tax season, it will keep crashing. Smith is L2 season. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. There will be videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast in this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you how to become a blockchain master step-by-step, start to finish, over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching.